Maurice Scott really thought he was going to smooth-talk his way out of this situation, but the way it all unfolded had people shaking their heads in disbelief. He sat there trying to explain his DUI story, and honestly, it was one of the most confusing explanations anybody could give. First, he said he hit an animal. Then suddenly, that animal turned into a pole. And before you could even process that, he added a tree into the mix. It was like listening to a child make up excuses on the spot. Folks were like, which one is it? Did the animal climb the tree, and then the pole magically appear out of nowhere? The way Maurice was fumbling through his words had even Martell cracking up, and let's be honest, Martell is not the type to hold back laughter when he thinks something sounds ridiculous. He was sitting there with tears in his eyes from laughing so hard, because the story sounded like something out of a comedy sketch, but here's the part that made it worse. Nobody was even asking about this DUI anymore. It wasn't even a topic of conversation until Maurice brought it up himself. That's why people started questioning his intentions. Why even bring it up if no one mentioned it? Was it guilt weighing heavy on him, or was it just his way of trying to over-explain so nobody would suspect the truth? Because let's be real, when someone starts explaining things nobody asked about, and they keep switching up details, it usually means they're hiding something. And that's exactly how it looked in this case. The more Maurice talked, the more it seemed like he was digging himself into a deeper hole. Then things shifted to the infamous Vegas trip, and that's when the drama really exploded. Maurice was asked whether he paid for that girl or how he even knew her. His response was all over the place. He said he remembered her from Vegas because Marceau flew her out. But immediately, the vibe in the room changed. Martell was ready to pounce because the contradictions were piling up faster than anyone could keep track of. If Marceau didn't fly her out, then why even bring it up? And if Maurice wasn't sure, then why not just deny it clearly? Instead of shutting it down with confidence, Maurice played around with words, leaving the door wide open for suspicion, and this is where Martell came in swinging. He didn't hold back. Martell flat out told Maurice, "You lying. You did have sex with her. We were all out together." That statement hit the room like a bomb. Kimmy, sitting right there, looked like she wanted the ground to open up and swallow her. You could see the discomfort on her face because how do you defend your husband when another man is calling him out with that level of confidence? Martell wasn't stuttering, he wasn't hesitating. He said it with his chest. Meanwhile, Maurice put his head down with this little smirk, the type of smirk people have when they know they're caught but can't figure out how to get out of it. And then Martell dropped what I'd call the knockout punch. He looked Maurice dead in the eye and said, "You a lawyer, sue me." That right there was the moment of truth. Because if Maurice really believed Martell was lying, if he really thought this was just made-up nonsense, why wouldn't he sue him? He's threatened to sue bloggers in the past. He even gave bloggers deadlines, saying, "Take it down in 24 hours or else." He's shown that energy before. But when Martell challenged him directly, the man who had all the power to drag bloggers to court suddenly went silent. Not a word. No lawsuit, no threats, just sitting there with his head down. That silence was louder than anything he could have said, and let's not forget, this isn't Maurice's first time being caught in lies. Fans still remember that reunion when he swore up and down that he wasn't in Atlanta and had never even met Arion Curry. He looked Kimmy in her face, sat on that stage in front of everybody, and lied without flinching. But then what happened? Marceau later posted a picture proving he was there. And Arion herself confirmed they were around each other. That was the first big crack in Maurice's credibility, and honestly, it set the tone for how people see him today. Now imagine if Arion Curry actually comes onto the show. The Scots would crumble. Letitia would look like she's been ignoring the obvious for years. Kimmy would look like she's been covering up lies while smiling in public. And all the dirt they've tried to bury would come right to the surface. Martell, who has been calling them out for a long time, would be sitting back with a grin because it would prove everything he's been saying. That's why even the mention of Arion's name has the Scots looking nervous. She's the ticking time bomb nobody wants to see go off, Because once it does, the whole house of cards falls apart. Back to the Vegas situation though, Maurice tried to deflect in the most obvious ways. He started asking Martell pointless questions, like what color the carpet was or what random details he could remember, as if those little things would erase the bigger truth. That's a classic gaslighting move. Try to confuse the conversation with details so people forget about the actual accusation. But Martell wasn't budging. He stood firm, repeating over and over that Maurice was lying. And the more Martell pressed, the more obvious it became that Maurice didn't have a real defense. The awkwardness didn't end there. Later, when Maurice sat down with Kimmy and Marceau to try and do damage control, it was even more obvious how weak his excuses were. He tried to say that Martell only brought his name into things because he was mad about the reunion. Then he tried to blame the girl, saying she's the one who brought his name up. And then, in the most unbelievable twist, he tried to act concerned about Martell's mental health, as if that was the real issue. But Marceau wasn't buying it. He shut that down quickly with a cold response, basically saying forget Martell's mental health. That should have been Maurice's energy if Martell was truly lying. Instead, he leaned into the soft approach, which made it look like he was trying to cover his tracks instead of fighting the accusation head-on. And poor Kimmy. She sat there smiling awkwardly in her pink feathers and Christian Dior headband, pretending like she believed every word coming out of his mouth. But her body language told a different story. She looked embarrassed, uncomfortable, and almost trapped. It was like she knew the truth but couldn't bring herself to confront it. People watching felt secondhand embarrassment because Kimmy deserves better than being lied to on camera and expected to laugh it off. But the reality is, her desire to stay in the Scott family has her overlooking red flags the size of billboards. Now let's talk about Letitia for a moment. Did anyone else notice she wasn't part of that little sit-down? That wasn't by accident. She doesn't want to be in the room when the cheating rumors about Marceau get brought up. Deep down, she knows what's going on, but she doesn't want to face it publicly anymore. Every season, Marceau's name comes up in some new scandal, and Tisha gets dragged through the mud all over again. It's exhausting for her, and honestly, it's embarrassing. That's why she avoids these conversations. Pretending like it's not happening feels easier than dealing with the humiliation. And then there's Destiny Payton. Phew, Destiny has been giving almost nothing this season. Outside of Martell, what has she really brought to the show? We don't see much of her business. We barely see her son. Her friendships seem non-existent. The only storyline she's holding on to is the one with Lance, and even that feels forced. It's almost like she's clinging to anything just to stay relevant. But compared to the firestorm around the Scotts, her storyline feels flat. Meanwhile, Martell is thriving in his own way. Love him or hate him, Martell knows how to deliver in these moments. He has this ability to expose people with precision, hitting them right where it hurts. He's not afraid to speak on things that everyone else tiptoes around. That's what makes him so dangerous on this show. If Arion Curry ever does step onto the scene and she and Martell decide to team up, it's game over for the Scotts. Because the truth always comes out eventually, and once it does, the entire image they've tried to build will crumble. The irony in all of this is that Maurice tried so hard to paint himself as the logical, trustworthy one. He's the lawyer, the one who's supposed to be level-headed and calculated. But every time he opens his mouth about these situations, he chips away at his own credibility. His stories don't add up. His body language gives him away. And the fact that he never takes action when he's challenged directly says more than any words could. As this season unfolds, one thing is clear, Arion Curry's name being back in the mix has everybody on edge. The Scotts are nervous because they know what's at stake. Their marriages, their reputations, their public image, all of it is on the line. And the more they try to deflect, the more obvious it becomes that there's truth hiding underneath the surface. Fans are watching closely, waiting for that one moment when the house of cards finally collapses, and let's be honest, if and when that happens, Martell will be the first one there, laughing louder than anyone else, because this is exactly what he's been warning about all along.